Hello, everyone. I'd like you to join me gazing out with this girl who's sitting on a wall, gazing out at the unknown, a city rising before her very eyes, transformation and change, the unknown. And I'm going to be speaking today about non-European languages with a focus on Chinese, but I hope that some of the things I say will be applicable to other non-European languages, Russian, Arabic, or Japanese, etc. And I'd like to, some of you might already have these languages in your schools, but I hope that the talk that I've prepared for you will in some way still be beneficial. So just very briefly about me, I'm head of Mandarin at Brighton College. I've been there for 6 years now. I did Chinese at Edinburgh University, did a master's in interpreting and translating, and also worked for the government of Taiwan for 2 years, where I interpreted, well, mainly actually translated documents under two presidents, President Chen Shui-bian and Ma Ying-jeou, one who was very pro-China, one who was quite anti, so that was quite an interesting milieu to be in. I grew up bilingual with German, and at Brighton College I've also introduced mindfulness, and most recently I've been involved with the government's initiative to introduce Mandarin in more state schools with the £10 million deal that George Osborne has put on the table for the language. So a lot of people are quite puzzled, like why? Why bother to learn Chinese? So many Chinese people are learning English today. Do you need that for business? Do you really? So it's an interesting question. And I think sometimes the answers that we come up with are not always the most helpful, although they are perhaps a part of the true picture. Is it because you want to understand these guys a bit better, the pandas? Well, a lot of the pupils I teach clearly think so. They just want to talk about pandas for some reason. And I have to admit, I have got a little bit tired of the word and of the word panda. Is it because we want our pupils to have great career prospects and earn more money and boost the UK economy? Maybe it is for some people, and maybe that's not a bad thing. Is it because you want to understand a Ming vase? Now, of course, for some academics, that might be very interesting. But if you try to sell Chinese culture and language on very, very old things, you may only be appealing to some people. So we need to take a look at the cultural stereotypes that we try to sell so-called exotic languages with. And I think the word exotic is actually one of the reasons why people find languages so difficult to this day. There's a sort of misreading of what learning a language really is. It's not about learning about the other, always. Finally, is it to sort of understand, to perhaps celebrate Chinese New Year with Chinese people once a year? Okay, that's great. All these things are wonderful, and they're great ways in for Chinese, but give it a year or two, the kids will be bored of lion dancing at Chinese New Year, and the pandas will also have their time. So I'd like to sort of suggest a new paradigm, really, for learning any language, whether it's one closer to home or far away. And I think that rather than looking at the differences, the stereotypes, the exoticness, why not look at what binds us in our common humanity? How can we reach out and understand another culture? How can we connect to Chinese people in their lives today? What makes them tick? How are they similar to us? And yes, also, how are they different from us? But I really think that this is where it can be most meaningful, introducing something like Chinese or Arabic or Russian. And I'd like to take on a mini quest today. We're going to find 3 keys for the successful, what I think perhaps is the successful implementation of a language program. The first key, as you can see, is a very ancient one. And I chose this one because I wanted to represent a very primal emotion, that of fear. So that's me being quite afraid before I actually leap down the Great Wall there. I filmed myself, I think, jumping and sort of flying down. And I really think we've got to shatter this fear mindset that we so often have around languages. It's a cultural thing, it's an institutional thing, and it's a personal thing in the UK. It's this great fear, it's something different, something that, oh, I wish I'd done that, or I wish I'd sort of made time for that. I'm not really cut out for that. So that's for pupils and for schools. We need to shatter the fear surrounding embracing something like Chinese. And these are the sort of fearful statements that are going on in people's minds. Maybe some people even in this room today. Keep it as a club, or let's just focus on subjects we're comfortable with. Or maybe you're already grappling with some of these fears yourselves. But I would say take heart. Without meaning to sound arrogant, I can do it. I've done it. So if you have a teacher like me standing in front of a class of pupils, I'm living proof that it's totally doable. You can become totally fluent in Chinese. Other human beings have thought it up. It's not some system designed by aliens to be as difficult as possible. It's actually supposed to facilitate our communication. So let's take part in that communication. And it's a writing system. It's not a sort of a writing lacking any system. We often think, oh my God, that's like so awesome. That's so crazy, man. All those little squiggly lines and things. Wherever you're from, I don't know why that accent came just then. But let's take, for example, this sentence here. I'm going to dispel a little myth for you about how many thousands and tens of thousands of Chinese characters you have to learn if you want to be good in the language. This statement here, 我不要吃晚饭. I don't want to eat dinner. So you add the eat in Chinese, which you don't always say in English. And let's look at what each of those characters means on their own. So first of all, 我 can mean I, me, my, we, our, us, one. So 我, if you go around saying 我, you know that you're actually saying a word that has so many meanings. And this doesn't make it more confusing because you learn the different contexts as your knowledge grows. You expand into the different contexts of what 我 can mean in other situations. 不 has a lot of negative connotations. 要 can actually be the future tense. So gone are all the necessities of having to conjugate future, present, past, singular, plural in Chinese. What a wonderful thing. Just put 要 in front of any verb and you have the future tense. Or the desirous tense, if that were to exist. 吃, eat, so it can also be to suffer because you're eating misfortune, if you like. Sometimes in combination with other characters. So all of these might take on more meanings when they're combined with other characters. 晚, the square with the line on 晚 is the sun radical. So any character you see with that little square on the left has something to do with time or sunlight or day or night. 饭. So from 6 little characters we have potentially 41 meanings, give or take. So actually you don't need the vast amount of characters you think in order to make a huge array of different sentences. This is a bit of an oversimplification, but it is, we do need to dispel some myths about how hard it really is. In terms of practical matters, embedding it in the curriculum, at Brighton College I've been really blessed to have an environment and a headmaster where we can have 3 35-minute periods every week for years 7 and 8. And the progress is absolutely stunning. The confidence, the aplomb with which all these pupils are really growing into the language after 2 years is really quite something. We go down to 2 periods in year 9, and then there are 4 at GCSE and 8 in 6th form, plus a few extra speaking sessions for 6th form. So I cannot recommend enough, perhaps to overcome the fear, to really embrace it completely, if you like, and really go the whole hog. Now, there is a risk of just keeping it sort of on the margins of your curriculum as a club after school or as a 1 period a week in a prep school. It's great for the marketing, perhaps, and it's sort of a preparation for those who might go on and become serious later, but you won't really learn very much at all. And it's just, I think it's a bit sad when it's not, I think don't do it at all or do it properly. It's just my own personal feeling if you want the kids to really benefit and learn and make progress. Pre-U at 6th form, not the A-level. The A-level was initially designed for native speakers who grew up with their Chinese heritage in the UK. The pre-U is a wonderful qualification, which I'm an examiner on, so I'm sort of quite biased, but it teaches culture and history, so you actually learn to write essays in English about Chinese, about the formation of the PRC, for example, or about a wonderful film, Balzac and the Little Chinese Seamstress at the moment. So a really good way to engage our pupils, not just getting them to know about Chinese festivals and the typical traditional stereotypes, but some of the modern interesting developments as well. And including the economy. You can actually teach teach about the Chinese economy in the pre-U. So it's a very, very engaging degree, and universities accept it on a par with A-levels. So it's, you're not risking anything really except perhaps the statistics of overall A-level results, unless you can include them. I don't know about that. Further ways to embed the subject, obviously, is to have a partnership with a school in China, and it's surprisingly easy to set up. Obviously, there's a language barrier. But I get emails every few weeks from schools saying, we're longing to sort of share our culture and our life and everything with you guys. Please, please come. So it's a really good way to take the learning and give it context. So the pupils go abroad, they actually stay a couple of nights, our pupils, with host families in Beijing, which is really, really exciting and eye-opening. And some of these people's friendships will continue years after that brief visit to Beijing. And help is always at hand. So we have the Confucius Institute. Some schools can apply to get funding from that for programs where you get a free teacher, well, almost free teacher from China each year. The Mandarin Forum is a brilliant way to recruit teachers. If you have signed up, you will get a lot of emails every day, so just as a warning, you might want to use another account. The 13th Annual Chinese Teaching Conference is about to take place. It's a wonderful place to go network with other schools teaching Chinese and also other teachers and attend work, or to send your teachers on for workshops. Okay, there's one caveat to all of this. Okay, Chinese is still difficult. Yeah, Chinese is still a challenge. And we need to recognize that and be honest about it. And I tell my year sevens, right at the start of the year, that they need to learn to navigate the uncertain waters that learning Chinese entails. True success and confidence in Chinese comes from your ability to cope with the unpredictable, to cope with the uncertainty, and to develop what we call the warrior nature. So that's a wonderful way to really get the pupils enthused. So at the end of each lesson in year 7, I will take a pupil, they will come to the front, and I will say, I'll give a little spiel. You know how it is when you give awards. So-and-so for their, all these different things. And I will say, come, stand here. And I will say, so imagine their name is Tom Smith for now. I'll say, Tom Smith, you have been identified as possessing the warrior nature. And little things like that, and then they get a little certificate with the warrior nature that they can take home, and they're just like absolutely over the moon about Chinese. And also it's recognizing that it's difficult. So those who perhaps aren't doing so well, but are making the effort, they can also be showing the warrior nature. So it's about a shift in mindset that uncertainty, failure is part of Chinese. I pick up a magazine now, even though I've got an MA in Chinese, and I'll be like, oh my God, am I going to understand all of this? I too have to navigate the waters of uncertainty when I'm learning Chinese at this ripe age that I've reached. So the benefits really are legion of having Mandarin. You open your pupils to a completely different culture, they overcome prejudice. You create wonderful marketing opportunities for your school. Prospective parents adore walking into a fabulously decorated Chinese classroom, and they will hang around. It's very hard to get them out of the classroom. And it's wonderful. It makes your school a little bit more cosmopolitan. It brings in a whole new feel if you have an exotic, I keep using that word, language. And it will enrich your assembly life as well, your general school community feeling. You can bring a whole different dimension and atmosphere into the community. So the second key is a slightly more modern key, and it's one which concerns us currently and has for a while. I think this is physics, although it could be maths and physics combined, but I found this online, and we often say, physics is a hard, some people might say physics is a hard subject. I'm sure some of you in this room will have heard somebody say at some point physics is hard. Could we just have a show of hands if you have ever heard perhaps someone saying physics is hard? Okay, good. So physics is hard. Why are we allowed to teach physics? And yet languages, are they harder than physics? Why can't we teach languages as well? Why can't we teach Mandarin and Arabic and all sorts of languages? And my real feeling is, my message to you today, perhaps, if there's anything to take away from this, is it's not how hard a subject is or a language. It's about the teachers that you have. It's Confucius. So what makes a good teacher of Chinese? The absolutely perfect candidate has the balance, the yin and the yang, the elements of traditional Chinese culture in their upbringing, in their heritage, and yet they maybe have lived in the West for long enough to really understand the cultural mores and the children and what makes them tick, the young people. However, who's going to have a perfect balance? Who of us are truly fully balanced in our lives? More often than not, we language teachers will have one more on the side of being native speaker or non-native. So that's just a reality we need to deal with. And if you're interviewing, I'll give you some really concrete little things to look out for if you're interviewing teachers for non-European languages. If it's a non-native speaker like myself, you need to make sure that they're heard by an excellent native speaker. For example, during the lesson, the observed lesson. You need to check for their tones with Chinese. It's a tonal language. So many foreigners might have a good conversation, But the Chinese there helping these young children to learn might not be that spoken if all their tones are all over the place, the 4 tones of Mandarin, which affect the meaning of the words you're saying. It doesn't mean you can't be a great Chinese speaker with terrible tones. My professor at university had a lot of her tones were really not quite on the money, so you can still become a professor. But if you want to give someone the spirit of the language and really get them into authenticity of sound, I recommend you pay attention to that. But I can be a bit perfectionist because that's one of the things I've prided myself on is my tones. I think it's one of the beauties of Mandarin. Also, when observing them teach, how confident are they with their stroke order? So are the strokes in the correct order, or do they forget a really simple character? If you're looking at non-native speakers, check first of all if they've got a visa. I can't stress that enough. You might think, oh, they look really great, they've got all this experience, but hang on a sec, they haven't got a visa and they probably want me to sort it out for them. And that can be quite an administrative faff, much as it would be nice to sort of keep them in the country if they're nice people. Also, cultural literacy. Do they understand the culture from here? Can they connect with the children? Teaching culture. Do they come from a place where they're very, very strict naturally? Or do they feel, conversely, they've got to really please everyone in this country they've arrived in? Both of those extremes can be difficult to deal with in the classroom. And can they really engage the pupils for a whole lesson? Or is it just like a nice beginning and then it kind of becomes a bit samey? Those are all sorts of things that you've got to really watch out for. And finally, why do they want to teach? Is it because he or she has married a UK national and just thinks, oh, I'm a native speaker, I rather fancy, it's sort of quite a good opportunity for me to go and teach a little bit of Chinese on the side. So we, the teachers, are key to the success of your program. It's our duty to ensure pupil retention long after the honeymoon phase is over, into GCSE and well beyond pre-U university. And we do this by following best practice. All the stuff you all know already, all the things, active learning, teachers playing to their strengths, which I'll talk about in a moment, using authentic texts. If you're teaching professions, why not show pictures of Chinese doctors, then go on and talk about Chinese medicine as well. So use these avenues to bring culture through perhaps the most mundane vocabulary that you're teaching. And regardless, back to what Anthony Selden said, I think having that relationship and that empathy is always going to underpin the most successful teaching. I can't stress this enough personally, and I shy away from using the word love because it's a bit risky, but I think having that real, genuine human connection, that's what school is all about and what it should all be about. So letting the teachers play to their strengths. I've put this here just to sort of indicate what I believe my strengths are, and that is I love to be creative. So I use a lot of singing. I've written pop songs in Chinese which I sing with the children, and if you continue to be so well behaved at the end, I'm going to ask you to join me in song. I also love to make little movies. I've made all sorts of crazy movies on YouTube, and raps, Chinese raps as well. So it's wonderful for me to have had these avenues where I can really let all of my true colours shine, if you like, which all of your teachers need to do, unafraid of just the exam strictures. And I think that we all get afraid of covering the content, but just abandoning it sometimes. Having fun, letting your hair down is so important too. So we're nearing the end now, and before I show you this, I thought I'd just go over some very brief further things to do with technology. There's a wealth of other apps and websites for listening, reading, which are really, really helpful. And even right now, there are some in my mind that I'm looking forward to introducing my pupils to when I go back to school tomorrow. Digital storytelling is a great thing to get pupils really creative. Because they're speaking, they can create stories and use photographs or hand-drawn pictures or things in their room to create stories. And then they can put all that to video and upload it onto YouTube. And they love doing that. And that's also the ultimate homework assignment, make a film. It's like, yeah, I want to do my homework. God, I'm not doing anything else. I'm not going out to play with my friends. So before I show you an example of my own pupils' work, I'm just going to introduce you to a little song. Do we have time, Humayon? Great. So this little song, this little ditty I wrote, it's just a great way to sell Mandarin and have fun at the same time. So as you can see, it's all about just learning Chinese, really. All the other subjects, they're great, but Chinese is the best. So here we go. I'll sing it through. I'm going to just show you the chorus, which is the last 4 lines. 我最喜欢中文课. That means my favorite is Chinese. So if you could just try the chorus briefly with me. It goes, 我最喜欢中文课。Could you try that once? 我最喜欢中文课。Then it goes 中文课。Try that. 中文课，最喜欢中文课，最喜欢中文课。Doodaloo doo 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 yeah. Try that once as well. Doodaloo doo 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 yeah. Okay, good. So let's try that. 你喜欢什么课？我很喜欢中文课。为什么你喜欢中文课？因为我觉得很有趣，也写汉字，说汉语，唱中文歌，就是我喜欢做的。喝中国茶，看中文电影，吃面条和米饭，很好玩，好玩。Whoops, Daisy。历史课、地理课、英文课、法文课、美术课、体育课、音乐课，还有科学、数学课，所有的课都很有意思。但是 ，Here we go， 我最喜欢中文课，中文课，最喜欢中文课。嘟嘟嘟嘟嘟嘟嘟，yeah。很好。